So I've been listening to this guy's audiobook, Cameron Hanes. Um, didn't really know much about him besides he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and um, it's a decent story he's got. It's basically like a autobiography in a sense, and then he's very motivating, and there's something about like these guys where it's like they're doing so much that most people just can't give meaning to, and they're operating on like a whole different level where most people would just be overstimulated or give up. And there's something exceptional, and it's also, you got to be, well, even just to be positive with whatever situation you're in, you have to be a little delusional. But regardless, to do anything, even like, I mean, there's a big gap between like he was saying, he was getting a lot of not necessarily hate, well, certainly with the hunting, a lot of people hate when you kill animals, but just even the, what would you call it, the naysayers, I suppose, because he was getting into like, he was very passionate about bow hunting, and he got into like running, like doing marathons or ultra marathons, and as a, well, that was a passion of his too, but like ultimately to become a better hunter. And then you have like all the naysayers like saying like, oh, you don't need to do this and this to the hunt. And he's basically just like who are you to tell me how I'm gonna be the best hunter? And because most people, they can't or they don't want to, they can't see themselves pushing past their own limits. Or no, that's not right. Not pushing past your limits, but testing your limits. Most people are afraid to test their limits. Well, we all are. But the more you do it, the less scarier it is. And there's certainly a big difference between this guy running ultra marathons and carrying 100-pound rocks up mountains, which is apparently something he was doing, versus me just getting into, I just did my first 5K last month. So there's a huge gap there, but I'm nowhere near as obsessed as this guy is, but I'm focusing on different things. Got the yoga teaching, CPA studying. Yeah, I mean, I read a lot, and just, you know, at a certain point, there's just excuses where obviously I'm more comfortable just reading and lounging around studying, and I do want to run more. at a certain point, I feel like I'd be able to get to running every day, but I feel like that's unrealistic in the beginning when you go from like couch to whatever it's called, whatever that challenge is. Like if you go from not running at all to running every day, I'll have to go back and read David Goggins again. But when he first started, like he was really overweight, and he also went through the military already, so he was already like pretty used to running. But like when he was trying to lose the weight to get back in the military, I don't think he was running every day. Eventually he got there. Maybe he was already there. It just seems unrealistic, or it's just because he was also, he's been dealing with a bunch of physical issues. So obsession really comes at a cost, where you're like wearing yourself down and abusing yourself. And I was talking about like how we treat our bodies the other day, or at some point this week, and it's a spectrum. Like that's like the extreme, just like overworking our body, and then there's the extreme underworking, which is where most people are at. They don't do shit. They hardly move at all, and they're dying from all sorts of things because they don't move their body enough, or eat well enough, or they just don't take care of themselves. And then most people, I suppose, it's hard to say where they're at, but I think the middle ground isn't just like this one sphere. Like it's a spectrum, and it feels like, at least for me, I'm just constantly kind of just like moving back and forth, trying to like inch a little closer to being more obsessed about improving myself, but at the same time being grounded and just noticing how I feel as I'm moving on that spectrum. Because if you just go right into, hammering out runs every day and workouts and all this other stuff, I feel like exhaustion will catch up to you. I could also just be more sensitive to certain things, like just exhaustion, and I can't even drink caffeine anymore. I used to drink like 3 cups a day. Now but there's a difference between making excuses and making sure you are what's the right way to put this? Making sure you're progressing in a way that would minimize failure. Progressing in a way that will make you more likely to, maybe not even just to succeed, but to keep going on the path that you're on. And it's unrealistic, at least it's been for me my whole life, where every time I try to get back in the gym or running or whatever it is, studying, I do too much in too short of a time span, and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I'm just like doing it, and I'm with certain things that's good, but it's okay. On one hand, there's something about not thinking about things and just doing it that's good, because if you get in your head, then you can convince yourself that convince yourself out of doing the things like running and working out and all this stuff. But then you also need like a plan. You need to game plan, and the only way to really do that is once you get into it. Like, okay, I tried it this way, that doesn't feel right, maybe I'll do it a different way. Like, just with studying, every other time in the past years I would try studying, I would take way too many notes, and that would take up so much of my time, and I would just burn myself out, and I wasn't going anywhere. I was wasting time. I've been studying for a few weeks now for the CPA, and I'm taking 0 notes, all multiple choice, and it's like on the Becker's the company. They got task-based simulations and videos, but it's interesting. I think I was talking about this yesterday. It's interesting how much more I'm noticing I'm retaining, and just I'm learning. I'm taking in this information that would always just agitate me before, because I felt like I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And now that I'm more grounded, I'm coming from a more of a I guess a space of abundance, or a mindset of abundance, where I'm good where I'm at. I'm not, obviously, well, I still want things. I want to be in a better position, but I'm not letting a negative attitude hold me back, pretty much. And I was thinking about this with the audiobook, because it's so easy. So many people, they hold themselves back with their own negativity, and because of that, they maybe they don't realize it. They're just making excuses for why they don't do certain things, and then when someone like Cameron Hayes is like doing the stuff, like going all out, and there's the naysayers like, you shouldn't do that, you don't need to do that, like what's wrong with you, what are you doing? And because people act like they know what's best for you, and a lot of envy with that, and just insecurity. But the truth of the matter is, he's a great role model. He does a lot, and there's something about great, whatever it is you're doing. If you're great in something, if you're obsessed about something, you're going to have people that don't like what you're doing, and then you're going to have people that are inspired by you. And I guess that's why I'm thinking about just recording, just doing this. No one needs to listen to me. If someone doesn't like what I say, then well, I mean, I'm open to the conversation, but like, it's like, if someone were to say like, oh, you shouldn't spend your time just yapping on the phone, you should go out and volunteer or whatever, and do things that matter. I'm not saying that volunteering doesn't matter. It's just like, this is a form of expression, and I'm going to express myself, not for anyone else, just for my own benefit. But if I help anyone else with my words, all the better. And that's kind of the vibe I get from Cameron Hayes from his audiobook. That's why he runs the ultra marathons and all that. Not to show off, or like he was saying how like kids, younger, teens, young adults would go up to him and ask like how they get the sponsorships and the deals to like make their own shoes and boots or whatever. And the same thing with like he's pretty much like he's definitely an athlete. Like you think about any athlete in the NBA or whatever, they're all millionaires. They're practically all. I don't know if Cameron Hayes is a millionaire, but we tend to see the results and think it's a lot more attainable than it is, because we want a shortcut to that without doing the work. Like if your goal is to have the money, the sponsorships, the brand deals, it's going to be harder for you because you're not really in it. Let's say playing basketball or whatever, bow hunting. That's what for Cameron Hayes, or anything really. Like for me, teaching yoga, the CPA studying. It's a little bit of both. But if money is like your only motivator, you're not going to be great at the thing that you're doing. Being obsessed with the thing you're doing and being great at that should be the goal, and then money and success and all that comes as like a side effect. But we're afraid of the means to that, like the expressing ourselves and just embodying our truth, taking up space. But it takes practice. And this is definitely good practice for me. I'm just yapping away. There's always the possibility someone is listening, and then if I keep doing this a year down the road, then the right person might hear it or whatever. No expectations, but I just felt called to do this, and that's just anything. I felt called to do the yoga teacher training. I felt called to study for the CPA, even though I've been pushing that off for years. I'm finally committing to that. Yeah, it's really kind of just like it's a very subtle feeling, and the more calm you are, the more clear it is, I think. And then once you're on a path, you kind of have just to pick something, and then once you're on the path, it becomes more clear whether or not you're on the right path, or maybe you're not, and then you kind of backtrack, like, okay, what's another path I can take? What's something I can obsess about and be great at that would eventually also lead to other good things like happiness and financial stability? But yeah, the best way to get there is to be true to yourself. A lot of people lie their way to the top, and then they get there and they're miserable. And then they just keep lying, and that's why there's so many psychopaths in government. And like, no billionaire is like a sane person. And maybe I'll talk about this some other time, but yeah, all these people that are supposed to be serving the public, they enrich themselves because they think they're above everyone else, and their main motivator was power and wealth. Anyway, live your truth.